practice, not a game, not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We're talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that? And we're talking about practice.
Best believe that I'm top 3. The only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Put me anywhere other than one that is not me. It's beef, we shred a nigga block, that's chopped cheese. No peace, the butterfly sting him, that's Ali. You reach, I teach him with the handle, that's Kyrie. Machines you hook like a Roman, that's IV. You a sheep, I'ma go, it's a difference, so watch me. You weak, all hooks, no punches, so block these. They mock me, I just show them how it goes. Try to stomach this thug life. They brain got the nose, bandana on the grip. All heads coming out the foe. Connected from Cali to New York, niggas, so let it go. Made for this. Nigga, I eat bars and drink flows, thinking you woke into your third eye peephole. Line for line, this shit too easy, it's like a free throw. Mastered the game too early, this bitch a cheat code. It ain't a game, these niggas lame, state bring a shame. If I'm with an officer, it's a number in his name. We ain't the same, you want the easy pass, tell him change his lane. Shit, I've been through the fire, you can't stand the rain, take an aim. Tell him runner, he can try his best. Drive a car named after me, that's why I'm in the vet. Lamping these niggas once again, and I ain't break a sweat. Number one at everything I do, that's why I'm one west. The Lord is not the God of the dead, so when I die, coming back for my spot, so forever I'm top 3. Just tell him to watch this janitor with the mop stick. You gonna need a defensive lineman to block this. On point when I bomb shit, 10 for 10, I do not miss. I'm barking with a full bulldog, it is not mixed. They can see that my mind's sick, I don't write, I find shit. I don't like it, then I switch. If I touch it, it's diamond. Tell a bitch that I'm God sent. It ain't because my kicks is built like 5'6", 5'7", is my bitch. Dangerous, high risk, I lose it, get another one. You think I'm talking about a girl, I'm talking about another gun. You hear now? Hey, look, it is what it is now. We don't fuck with the house niggas, we burn the crib down. I'm ahead now, and I hope they can hear now. I don't care if you think it's it, nigga, I don't fear clown. Silence just make it sound like raindrop, that's a fire storm. Get the job done in the view or get fired on. If you niggas standing for nothing, what you dying for? If you put real with real, that's how I was born. Walk in this bitch ready for war, I'm in riot form. I want these niggas to see me flex, that's why I am armed. I shouldn't live in the crib, nigga, I should buy a farm to go through this shit so effortless. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3. Best believe that I'm top 3. Only thing is I'm not 2 and I'm not 3.
Hey, Shalom Israel, Yahweh Shem Yahshai, Barakah to the brothers, Yahweh Shem Alapim, Shem Yahshai to the sisters. I'm Priest Officer Parag holding down the Wednesday law class for the ISUPK coming out of Arizona. All right, if you're watching at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see our class location, which is right off of the corner of 28th Drive and Cactus. All right, we also going live for ISUPK Nevada as well. All right, so for us out here in Phoenix, we got classes every Tuesday through Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. And then we have our classes every Saturday for our Sabbath service at 10 a.m. to 12 noon. For Vegas, they got classes every Tuesday through Thursday from 7 to 9 p.m. All right, so make sure you tap in with our brothers. All right. So today we'll be going over, we're just going to be talking about the role of a wife. All right. I think it's definitely a necessary topic for us to understand what the role is for for a woman that has a husband, right? What's her purpose? What's her role, right? It's a lot deeper than what the Christian churches taught us about, a man and a woman's relationship. They say, oh, this is a covenant with God, but okay, sure, but what does that covenant entail? What are the roles and the duties of this man and the roles and the duties of this woman? And what you'll come to find is that each person in that relationship or in that marriage has a role. Everybody plays a role in everything, right? In the school, we got troopers. They play a role. Then we got young officers. We play a role. Officers of 5,000, captains, right? They play roles. Everybody has a role to play, all right? So it's important if you're a woman in a marriage, right? You're a wife. It's important to know what exactly your role is or what your duty is according to the Most High. Now, I'm doing the women first. Next week, Lord allow, I'm going to be doing the role of a husband, right? But for this week, we're gonna focus on the women, especially because in the world, a lot of times sisters don't really understand their role, and so because that's the case, they don't play their role, and that's why it goes both ways. The same thing for the brothers as well, right? So what we're gonna start off at is in Genesis, the second chapter. We're gonna start off at the beginning. We're gonna work this thing down, right? We're really gonna get a full understanding of what a good wife is, and what her role is. We'll talk about some of the negative things, of course, too, and things that certain sisters may need to correct. Now, usually sisters that are in the UPK got it down. You understand? But um, if you don't, if you don't have a righteous man of the Lord, it's very hard for you to fulfill your duty because you probably don't know what it is, right? And if you do know what your duty is, and you have a terrible husband, a lot of times you feel like, well, I don't want to do nothing for him, right? Which is a tough situation, but we're gonna read what the Bible has to say about it. So let's get Genesis 2 and 18.
Book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone.
So now this is all the way back to around the time of creation, right? This is a time when Adam was being formed by the Most High. All right. Now, of course, the whole everything about what we're going to read. This is Adam was the first brother that was brought the truth of the Most High. The first brother that was dealt with one-on-one with the Most High, right? And as he's bringing Adam up to speed and basically opening Adam's eyes to who the Most High is, he realized that, listen, this brother shouldn't be alone. This brother needs something. And we're gonna find out what it is, right? It says, so it is not good that the man should be alone, right? Go ahead.
I will make him and help meet for him.
Right. It says, I will make him and help meet for him. All right. Now, here's what we want to understand. All right. The term help meet is talking about the Most High is going to create somebody to help him and somebody that is suitable for him. That's what that meet is, right? This is Old English, and that's just kind of the way that this was written down. But it just means a help that is suitable for him. And that's exactly what his of course, we're going to find is going to be Eve, which is his wife, right? Which is his rib, right? Before we keep going, let me get on the Apocrypha Ecclesiasticus, all right? Because before we get to the whole rest of that breakdown on Eve's role and things like that, I want everybody to understand something about how important it is that the Most High said that Adam's wife was going to be a help that is suitable for him. So let's get Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha in the 36th chapter. We're gonna read verse 24.
Book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 36, verse 24.
Mm-hmm.
He that getteth a wife begetteth a possession.
So now, not only was the Most High giving him a help, but the Most High was also giving Adam a possession, a responsibility, which is part of the husband's responsibility, which of course I'll talk about more next week when I break down the husband's role. But this next part is what the kicker is, right? Go ahead.
A help like unto himself.
A what?
A help like unto himself.
That's what the role of a woman is. A role of a man's wife is for that woman to be a help unto him, because once again, the Most High said it's not good that a man should be alone, right? Why? Let's keep going.
And a pillar of rest.
And a pillar of rest. That when the Most High, listen, the Bible says this. Scriptures say, when a man getteth a wife, he getteth a good thing, right? And he obtained favor in the Lord. Why? Because being alone as a man is not a good thing for too many reasons, right? For too many reasons. The things that imagine, and this is why single fathers and single mothers both have it extremely hard, because they're doing the job of a masculine spirit around the house and a feminine spirit. You understand? For a man to have to do everything, I'm talking about this man got to go out and make the money and do yard work and all of these things, and he got to cook, he got to clean, take care of the kid. For a single father, it's terrible, because he's missing that feminine spirit in the house, which would be his wife. That's what she's designed for. She's designed to be that feminine in the house to help out with the things that brother can't do. Same thing for that sister, right? That man is designed specifically for that sister to do the things that she can't do. So that's why it's it's a necessary balance, right? And so a woman is provided to a man to provide that necessary balance, right? And part of that balance is being a pillar of rest. You got to understand that a man going out and facing the terrible reality of life, period, right? And coming home to nobody is the worst thing ever, right? But for a woman to be at home and she's making sure the house is taken care of and all of these things, and she's not a bitch, she's not that like the terrible the people that you deal with on the outside world. You're not coming home to that. You're coming home to something sweet. And that's what a woman should be for her man. A woman should be that, right? That pillar of rest.
Right.
He come home and everything's taken care of. Understand? That's with that, and that's just the truth about it, right? Let's keep going.
Where no edge is, there the possession is spoiled.
So talking about that same pillar, it says where no hedge is, there the possession is spoiled, right? So now this thing that this responsibility and this duty that this brother's picked up by getting his wife, now that possession is spoiled, right? Keep going.
And he that hath no wife will wander up and down mourning.
Right. And if you don't have a wife, which is exactly what I was talking about earlier, not having a wife, not having a sweet woman to come home to help you, to be your helpmeet, right? You're gonna wander up and down in the street mourning. You understand? And you're gonna, because a man. Here's one thing that people have to understand about marriages, right? Okay, can a man be a eunuch for the kingdom, meaning he don't get a woman? That's fine. That's what Paul did. Paul didn't get a woman. He didn't get married.
Right.
Because he wanted to focus on the work. He just wanted to be married to the work, and that's it. Can a sister not get married? Absolutely. She could just, she could be the sister that's like a mother in Israel. She makes sure the brothers got food for camp. You understand? But she just never marries anybody, and that's okay. But understand something about marriages. Marriage is is second to the truth, is what gives you purpose in your life. You understand? Like without the truth, you of course wouldn't have any purpose. But besides that, marriage is what gives a brother purpose, a sister purpose, because that brother has now a possession, a responsibility, that woman that he now needs to take care of, right? But that woman is also reciprocating that care, right? By being that helpmeet, that pillar of rest. And that's the harmony that a marriage is. That's how it's supposed to be. But of course, today in 2022, it's kind of a sad situation because so many of us don't look at marriage like that. And then we get these conversations about 50-50 and all of these things, and what should that asking those types of questions and making those types of statements is null and void when you have the Bible right here. The Bible tells you exactly how to deal with it. It tells you what that man's role is, and it tells you what that woman's role is, right? And we just read that woman is supposed to be a pillar of rest for her husband. So that's part of her role. Now, we got plenty more to talk about. So let's get back into it. Let's get Genesis again. Let's get Genesis, the 3rd chapter. All right, so we just read in the 2nd chapter of Genesis that woman, Eve, was created for Adam, meaning that woman was, women, period, are designed for men, right? To be and help me, right? So now we're gonna skip a little bit, right? We're gonna go to Genesis, the 3rd chapter, and the 16th verse. Now this is after a lot of us know the story of the garden, right? Where Adam was told, right? He was told that he's not allowed to eat of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? And that information, of course, he was supposed to share with his wife, things like that, right? I was just part of kind of like the covenant that the Most High made with Adam and with his family, right? But Adam didn't do a good job of making sure that his woman listened to him, right? He didn't do a good job at that. So what ended up happening, we all know, the serpent was able to beguile Eve into taking part of that fruit, taking part of that knowledge, right? And of course, thus the house of Adam, right? Because he's responsible for this woman, right? That possession. The house of Adam is now in sin, right? And in iniquity and at odds with the Most High, because this man didn't have good rulership over his woman. It's just that simple. Because he told her, we know that because in Genesis, the 3rd chapter at the beginning, when the serpent asked Eve about the tree, she said, well, yeah, no, we're not supposed to eat of this tree. We're not supposed to partake in this knowledge, right? So he told her, but he didn't keep his rulership over. He didn't make sure that he was doing his job. That's why, of course, what happened. Now we're gonna see what the judgment is for that on Eve's part, for the wife's part, right?
Right.
Genesis 3:16.
Book of Genesis, chapter 3, verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception.
Mm-hmm.
In sorrow thou shalt bring forth child,
Mm-hmm.
and thy desire shall be to thy husband.
So now here's part of the this is a punishment. This is her judgment for what she did. But now a lot of people, when they take this, they look at all of it like a bad thing, right? But here's part of the judgment. The first part, yeah, that is bad. The sorrow and the conception and pain and childbearing, things like that, right? That is definitely that sucks. You understand? But this second half is more of a judgment, but not necessarily in a bad way. Because now this second half said what? That thy desire shall be to thy husband. Why does it say? Why did the Most High say to Eve, thy desire shall be to thy husband? Well, because when we read earlier in this chapter, her desire was to the serpent because she listened to the serpent over her husband.
Right.
So she didn't obey what her husband said, and that's how she transgressed. So now this is to keep her in order. Yes, it's a judgment, but it's not a bad judgment. She's just going to have to be in order and listen only to her husband, not to the serpent, not to the white man, not to the cat at the grocery store that you meet. You understand? Nobody else but your husband. That's who you listen to. That's who a woman is supposed to listen to, right? Keep going.
And he shall rule over
And
thee.
you shall do what?
Rule over thee.
So now here's the thing about this scripture, right? Once again, it sounds bad. It sounds like, he got his foot on her neck and things like that. But in all reality, a man ruling over his woman just means that he lays down the law and the woman follows it. That's it. It's that simple. And the reason why the Most High is even saying this right now is because she didn't do that. The reason she needed to be told that her husband, because that's always been the order. The order has always been set. But the Most High now understood that he's going to have to make sure this woman and that man knows, because Adam is right here listening to this too, right? And they both have to know that the man of the house, that husband in that relationship, needs to put his foot down, and that woman is going to yield to it. That wife must yield to it. And the reason, once again, that he has to say this is because we just saw an example of her not yielding to what her husband said. Her husband said, hey, this is what God said. We can't do this, that, and the third. She wouldn't do this, that, and the third. You get what I mean? And so because that's the case, now it has to be written right here in the book so we can see that a man's job is to rule over her. Now, this isn't talking about some sort of tyrannical, sadistic rulership where you're just an evil bastard. You understand? Ruling over a woman is a lot different than what a lot of people think about it as. I want to give some advice here for just the brothers real quick. First Peter, if you could. First Peter, the 3rd chapter. Just in regard to this rulership, because here's the thing that a brother has to understand about ruling over a woman. The word rule sounds so terrible because when you think of rulership, you think of like Joseph Stalin and Benito Mussolini, and Hitler. That's what you think about when you think of ruler, right? But in all actuality, a righteous ruler is going to consider things about the people that he rules over. And in the book of Peter, we're going to find one of the things that a brother should consider when he's ruling over his wife, right? Give me 1 Peter, the 3rd chapter, 7th verse.
Book of First Peter, chapter 3, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, ye husband, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife.
Go ahead.
As unto the weaker vessel.
As unto who?
As unto the weaker vessel.
As unto the weaker vessel. Understand this, that women are naturally weaker than men, right? In plenty of ways. Then they also have a lot of strengths, of course. I'm not taking anything away from that. But what we have to understand as husbands ruling over our wives is that we're not ruling over, some 6'2" football player. You understand? There's a certain way that a man should deal with his wife. So a wife should be able to submit, of course, to her husband and unto that rulership. But the husband also has to understand the proper way to rule over anybody, period. There are things that you have to consider when you're ruling over anything at all, right? So I wanted to bring that out real quick just because I wanted to clear up what that rulership consists of. We're gonna get that. We're gonna get how a woman should should submit to her husband and things like that. We're gonna get all of that. But I did want to make sure I cleared that up at the beginning of the class, that we're not talking about a rulership where this woman is just scared of you day in and day out, right? We're talking about a righteous rulership. Even Proverbs 29:2. Proverbs 29:2 says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice.
Right.
So your woman should absolutely love being ruled over by you. You understand? And as a woman, that's also advice to a woman. You should always embrace the rulership that your husband is trying to have over you, because it is absolutely of God, right? But it also says what? When the wicked are in authority, the people mourn. Why? Because a wicked ruler is going to beat his wife. A wicked ruler is going to berate his wife day in and day out, things like that. You understand? And that's just a certain way. If a brother doesn't really have experience or knowledge or understanding and how to do that, you should always get counsel. That's the first thing you should do, right? But I just wanted to bring that out so that way the rest of the class, people ain't like, oh yeah, he's saying, you got to rule over this woman like a damn tyrant. That's not what I'm saying. Scriptures say, don't be a lion in your house. You understand? For the brothers, don't be a lion in your house. You walk in the door, your wife hide the kids. You understand? She hide the kids. Oh, daddy's home from work. Oh God, you guys got to go get in the closet. You understand? And play dead, right? So I just wanted to point that out. Now let's get back to it. Like I said, I'm gonna bring a lot of that out next week, so we can really get on the husbands as well, the role of the husbands. So now let's go to 1 Corinthians, the 11th chapter. We're gonna get into the order, right, in the role. This is a scripture that we always bring out. We bring it out all the time, and it's really like the most clear cut. I read this scripture and it's like, I could, if I wanted this class to be broad, that's it. This scripture we're about to read is what you need to know about a wife's position, right?
Right.
But of course, we're not going to do that. We're going to break this down. We got more scriptures to it, right? So let's get 1 Corinthians 11:3.
Book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 11, verse 3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
So even us, we are ruled over by Christ.
Right.
We are ruled by Christ. So we submit to Christ. Whatever Christ said for us to do, that's what we got to do. You think that here's the thing about being in submission to somebody, right? You have to get over your feelings. Okay? This I always bring this out at camp. I bring it out as much as possible, right? You think it wouldn't be easier for me to just go home and smoke a blunt after a bad day? Like, that'd be the easy thing. You don't think it'd be easier for me to take out my frustration on a brother when a brother pissed me off so bad, right? Say something crazy to me or whatever the case. It wouldn't be just easier for me to just wail off on it. That's what I was used to doing. But then when Christ gave the instruction that you got to love your brother, when he said that we got to keep the laws and that no jot or tittle shall pass from the law, I had to yield to that. And I had to say, well, you know what? Although it's hard, my Adawan, my Lord is saying that, so I just have to do it. So you understand? Like, and that's the same position that a woman is in to us, because now read that from the top.
But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ.
So the same way that the head of every man is Christ, go ahead.
And the head of the woman is the man.
And the head of the woman is the man. It's that simple. So the same way that we have somebody over us telling us what to do, although it may not be the easiest thing to do, we trust and know that it's the right thing. Now, your husband is going to be over you, telling you the right thing, whether you like it or not. You understand? Now, listen, if it's a bunch of, the brothers in the UPK are hardcore. You understand? The type of brothers that we have in the UPK. We're the type of people that would never in the world, nobody could tell us to do anything. You understand? Taking the order from who? Right? That's the type of people that we were, because we're just alpha males in here. But we still we put that pride to the side and we take orders from our king. You understand? And that passes down to the generals, and the generals to the captains, and the captains to the officers, and down to the troopers and the young men. If we could take orders, y'all damn sure could take orders. A woman has to take orders, just like a man. It wouldn't make any sense. Where's the balance in that? Y'all want balance? I want balance too. If I got to take orders, you should be able to take orders too. And I think that's a big portion of what's wrong with um, society today is that the role of everybody is just flipped around, and a woman doesn't understand her role. That's why this class is necessary. Men don't understand their roles. That's why these classes are necessary, because society today makes it like well, Christ also yields, and he yields to the Most High. So a man with all that authority and a position of power, he still has somebody that he yields to too. So who the hell do any of us? What do we look like not submitting to authority? Like, people look at that word of submission as such a taboo thing. It's like, it's not a good thing. But brothers,
You know what I'm saying? You submit, everybody thinks to something. You know what I'm saying? Whether it be unto righteousness or whether it be, you know what I'm saying, sin unto death. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to pick and choose. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like you're either gonna be righteous or you're gonna be wicked. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the two. And everybody submits to one either or. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's lucky. But right, exactly. Everybody wants to submit to something. You understand? And so this is just the righteous order of how to submit. Now, usually we stop right there, right? Usually we stop at 11:3, but let's skip down to 11:8. First Corinthians 11:8.
Verse 8. By the man is not like for the man is not of the woman.
So for the man is not of the woman. That's why this order is the way that it is, right? The man is not of the woman. What does that mean? Right? Keep going.
But the woman of the man.
But the woman of the man. Why? He's going to explain. Go ahead.
Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man.
Right. The man wasn't created for the woman. The woman was created for the man. Ain't that what it say? Right? It wasn't, when we read that in Genesis, the 2nd chapter, it didn't read, it is not good that the woman should be alone. I'll find and help meet for her. It said what? It is not good that the man should be alone. I'll find and help meet for him. Why? Because if you're going to look at it, understand something, right? What Paul just said is further backing up the structure of the 3rd verse, right? The woman wasn't created. I mean, it's like the man wasn't created for the woman. The woman was created for the man. And when we read in other scriptures, like we just read earlier, that woman is meant to be in helpmeet, not only in helpmeet to that brother, but a responsibility, a possession. You understand? And so that's why reading up it says, "For the man is not of the woman, but the woman is of the man." So it's something to be said about the order of the way the Most High did these things, right? And then how in Genesis, the 2nd chapter, that he said that he created this woman for the man, right? Created this woman for the man to do what? To be a helpmeet, to be that pillar of rest that we talked about, right? Let me get 1 Peter. So and that's important, right? And really, one thing that a lot of people got to understand about this whole order, right, is that it's a lot simpler. Like, okay, I'll put it to you like this: without the influence of our oppressor, right, and this society that we live in, a lot of this just makes sense. Because, like, if you think about it, in any time of war in times past, it wasn't the women that got up to defend their husbands. naturally a man springs up and a woman gets away, and pushes her husband, hey, baby, you gotta, because that's the natural order. And it ain't nothing wrong with that, because women have strengths in other areas. And that's what they have to do. A woman has to embrace her strengths and not try to take away the strength from her husband. You understand? So her job is not. It was talking on Clubhouse the other day for them there, I think 2 days, and they was talking about how women should be able to teach and things like that, and they talked about all of those things, and women having authority over men, and it's like a brother brought something actually very heavy up to the conversation, right? And it's that a woman shouldn't. Matter of fact, it was Captain Zaya just said this, right? A woman has her own strength. She shouldn't want to take mine. You understand? She has her own position. She shouldn't want to take my position. It's that simple, right? So if it's our job to be the priest and to go out to camp and speak and to teach and to do all of these things and to, do the things that men do, a woman shouldn't try to take that from us. It's our job. It's in our nature to be masculine. A woman shouldn't be trying to be masculine. But there's nothing wrong with a man telling a woman that, right? Like I said, society today and our oppressive, it got you all jammed up in the brain where you don't really understand that, right? And they have made it to where it's uncomfortable for women to embrace their strengths. A woman is perfect for so many things. I mentioned it earlier, a few things that a woman is literally designed for, right? Let's read some more. Let's get 1 Peter the 3rd chapter. Let's start at the first verse.
1 Peter chapter 1 verse 1. Peter, an apostle of Yahushua Mashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout.
You in 1 Peter?
1 Peter.
1 Peter 3?
No, it's like.
Yeah, it's like a 3 and 1. It's like it might be me.
1 Peter chapter 1 verse. It's like chapter 3 verse 1.
Yep.
Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands.
Right. And so now this is something I want. This is going to be this little passage that we're going to read out of this letter from Peter is very important. It's very important because it's going to go a little bit deeper into the role of a woman and what a woman should do, or specifically a wife, right, should do. All right. So now, first thing it says, because now what we've been doing, right, this whole time is talking about how a woman needs to be under the authority of her husband, which is absolutely true. But it's a little bit more to it than that, right? So it says, likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, meaning to your husband, not subjection to, the man that you meet. This is another problem, right? Because being in subjection to doesn't necessarily always mean, okay, you being subject to something. You can be subject to weed, right? Because it's what you allow to have power over you or to control you, right? And so this isn't all. So when it says be subject to your own husbands, it's talking about specifically to your husband, not to another man. Because there's plenty of other men out here, right? A woman has to make sure that she focuses on being in subjection to her own man and nobody else, right? Keep going.
That if any obey not the word, that also, it's like, they also may without the word be won by the conversation of the wives.
By the what?
By the conversation of the wives.
So now it goes kind of into that that whole teaching thing that I just brought out, right? Because a woman might think that, well, what's my purpose if all I do is just, what can I do for the truth if all I do is just say kind of one kind to my husband and do what he says, right? How can I, what's my contribution? Well, we just read Peter, the head of the church, tell you what you can do, right? It says, if any obey not the word, so if there are people out there that are not in the truth, the same people that we go out, and why I say it like that, the same people that we go out and teach, right? It says they also may without the word be won, right? Be won by the conversation of the wise. A lot of what that conversation goes into when you look into it is talking about the behavior of the wise. It's about their conduct, right? So a woman being in good conduct and being in subjection to her husband has and will always bring people into the truth, right? It'll bring brothers into the truth. It'll bring sisters into the truth, right? Seeing an ordered family is something that Black people aren't really used to. So if a woman wants to understand how she can contribute more to this truth, she can start here. She can start in public, doing the thing, not being like the people in the world, where a woman is just, she in a damn uh, grocery store line, berating her husband and talking crazy to him in front of the children, all the things like that. A woman being in good behavior, just like a brother being in good behavior, that structure, that will bring people into the truth. That's another thing, right? But let's keep going.
While they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear.
Right, and so we're saying while they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, not the type of fear that like I said, you coming into the house, they put the children in the closets and pretend to be asleep. Not that type of fear, right? The type of fear this is talking about is the same way you should fear the Lord, with respect. You understand?
Right.
And that's how a woman should behave with her husband. A woman should have that chaste conversation, that chaste behavior, right? Chaste conduct, meaning humble, right? And also show respect, right, and reverence for her husband. I mean, that's just simple as this, right there in the scripture. It says that. That's how a woman should act. But it gets a little deeper, right? Keep going. Verse 3.
Verse 3. Whose adoring, let it not be the outward adorning of plaiting the hair,
Mm-hmm.
and the wearing of gold, or of putting on of apparel.
So it's saying for these women, for these wives, their beauty, because a lot of people say, even Christian churches in times past have used this to say that women can't like wear makeup, they can't get their hair done, they can't wear jewelry. That's what a lot of churches have done in the past, but that's simply not what this is talking about. What this is talking about is the fact that your beauty doesn't necessarily lie in, how good your hair looks and the jewelry that you got on and them long ass eyelashes that y'all sisters be putting on. It ain't got nothing to do with that, right? Keep going.
But let it be the hidden man of the heart.
The hidden man of what?
Of the heart.
Right, go ahead.
In that which is not corruptible.
And that which is not corruptible, because your spirit is not corruptible, right? Your spirit will last forever.
Right.
But your body's gonna go away. Let me make it even more carnal. That makeup is gonna wash off on the. It's gonna wipe off on the pillow when you go to sleep.
Right.
All that mascara, you're gonna leave all the mascara lines. You know, that's what's gonna happen. Your hair is, your hair one day, it's gonna turn gray. You won't be able to do all the things that you used to do with it. You understand? That outward appearance, yeah, that's cool. I love a woman to look pretty, right? But your real beauty, I don't give a damn if you're the prettiest woman in the earth. If your beauty doesn't lie within your spirit, I don't want you, and no real man would either. You understand? And so that's why Peter is saying that's where you hold your beauty, in your heart, right? Which is in your mind, your thoughts, right? But also, keep going.
Even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit.
Right, a meek and quiet spirit. What does it mean to be meek? It means to be humble. And really meek, if you really want to put it into perspective, it's just knowing your position, knowing where you stand. Any man or woman that knows where they stand, they'll be respected, no matter who it is. Right? And I like to kind of have some balance, because I'm talking about these sisters, but bring the brothers into it too. A trooper that knows his place, he'll be respected, and he'll get the praise that he deserves. Right? A trooper that knows not to talk all the goddamn time and not to think that he can go out and teach, that takes the orders, that does what they're supposed to do, right? Goes above and beyond, that brother will be respected. Well, that's the same thing as a woman that understands her place as well. A woman that knows when's the right time to speak, when's not the right time to speak, right? Her husband giving her the instruction that he gives, to follow it. You understand? So that's part of being meek. Part of being meek is understanding your position and embracing it, right? But then it also says meek and a quiet spirit, right? One thing that a woman should never be, and we're gonna read it straight out of the Bible, and we could read a million scriptures on this. One thing a woman should never be is abrasive. Um, you know, what's the word that I'm looking for? Abrasive was good, but what's the aggressive is another one. Um, a woman should never be a brawler. You understand? Like a woman should never be. That's a masculine spirit. When we go out and teach, we have to be aggressive. When men go out and teach, we have to be aggressive, and we gonna yell. You understand? Brothers, last week, brothers lost their voice. You understand? From all of the yelling that we was doing, because the scripture saying Isaiah 58:1, cry aloud and spare not. So that's exactly what we do. But the Bible also says that, well, I ain't gonna make it into the whole teaching thing. But my point is, right, is that a woman isn't supposed to be that way. A man is supposed to speak with authority, right? But a woman is supposed to speak humbly, like we just read, right? With a meek spirit and a quiet spirit. And this isn't to say that a woman can't speak. That's not at all. We would never teach that. A woman come to class, she can ask all of the questions that she wants. Understand? She can do all of those things. When we go home, we don't want our women to just be quiet all the damn time. We like to talk to our women. We actually love our women here. Christians hate their women. They'd rather their women shut the hell up and they go be with the boys all day, which is, I think, kind of gay. So I can't. You understand? We want to have conversations with our women. We like our women to talk. You understand? All of those things. So when it's talking about the quiet spirit, it's not talking about a woman just got to shut the hell up all the time. But it's that a woman has to understand her place and understand how she's to behave. It's that simple. It's not really a big deal.
And with learning how to behave comes from learning, you know what I'm saying, when to talk. You know what I'm saying? Like you that's why troopers, right? You know what I'm saying? Going back to you know what I'm saying, the men, right? Troopers don't speak, right?
Right.
They you know what I'm saying, they get applied, you know what I'm saying, they get told, you know what I'm saying, they get an order, right? And they have to execute that order, right? Now when they become an officer, you know what I'm saying, all that time, right, where you couldn't speak, now you can, you know what I'm saying, now you could cry out loud. You know what I'm saying? Now you know what to say, how to say, because you're trained. You know what I'm saying? You were disciplined enough to not speak.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And same thing with a woman. You can't go on Facebook, you know what I'm saying, have to reply to everything.
That's heavy.
You know what I'm saying? You go on Facebook, you're gonna have to just because somebody made a post, you're gonna have to reply to that.
Right.
You giving attention to the wrong things. Why don't you give more attention to your children, to your man then? You know what I'm saying? Than to, you know what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying, some random ass female, you know what I'm saying, trying to bring out, you know what I'm saying, some, you know what I'm saying, random colors out of you.
Right.
Like,
no, you absolutely right. That was heavy that you brought that out with the Facebook thing. Like a lot, that's a loud. God, you know the scriptures say that. I'm gonna just say it the way that I've heard it broke down. A loudmouth woman is just a bitch. That's what the Bible says. It says a clamorous woman. Listen, a clamorous woman is simple and knoweth nothing.
right.
That's what the Bible says. And when you go into what does it say? A shameless woman shall be counted as a dog.
Right.
If you up and you acting, because men battle. That's what we do. We battle. That's a masculine thing. We're going to be the ones that battle. A woman battling, you know, that's kind of shameless. You know, the scripture says, "Shameless woman shall be counted as a dog." You know, the word "bitch" wasn't around then, but "bitch" is a term for a female dog.
Right.
So that's the word that I'm going to use today. You understand? But my point is, like, once again, it's not to, when we say these things, I remember seeing Commander General Yohana going on a spree of calling out black women for their atrocities. I'm talking about atrocities. I'm talking about the way that they act, all of these things. And it wasn't, and he'll tell you this, you'll see it if you have the spirit. You'll see the way he's talking in them camp videos and all of those things. It was never about, you know, just shaming women as much as it was about correcting them. Like, but see, that's the thing. Sometimes, like with classes like this, because we're going to get into it in just a second. We're going to talk about all of the negative things you shouldn't do as a wife, right? Part of that needs to be brought out because it needs to be corrected. And nobody can be corrected if they don't understand what they're doing is wrong, right? So I like to say I say stuff like that because people write us off a lot. People write the UPK off specifically because they know we have a history of going in on women. What they don't realize is that 90% of our classes, if we going in on anybody, we going in on men. You understand? We calling men these certain things that the Bible calls them because of how terrible that they are. Listen, Captain Mashak said you are homosexual if you smoke weed.
Right.
I mean, we talk about men, but that means also that we have to talk about women because women are our sisters too. Black, Hispanic, and Native American women are our sisters too, so they got to be corrected the same goddamn way. All right, so that's my point. I just wanted to. That's kind of like a disclaimer. I thought it was in throughout, the class, because I want to make sure, because I'm very rude in my speech, but I do like to make sure that the message is being received properly, right? So let's keep reading on that, right? So let's do let me see. Okay, yeah, let's get verse 5 on that one.
Verse 5. For after this manner, in the old times, the holy woman also, who trusted in the Most High, adorned themselves,
Mm-hmm.
being in subjection unto their own husband.
And see, and this is the thing. When you go back, you'll find plenty of good examples, right? You'll find good examples of sisters that have absolutely did what their husband said and they were rewarded for it, right? We're about to read about Sarah and Abraham, but even if you stay in the New Testament, right? Priscilla, right? Priscilla was a sister that was married to a brother in the truth, and she obeyed everything that her husband said. Obeyed everything that her husband said, and she was a good sister, right? She was obedient, but not only that, she opened up her house to brothers, you understand, for this truth. And so you got to think about the attributes that you find. Like the Bible says that whatsoever was written aforetime was written for our learning. So those examples that you find in the Bible, they're there for us to look at and say, okay, this is the right thing to do. This is the bad thing to do. And the Bible's also always going to make the distinction between the two, right? And what we about to read was there so that way sisters could understand certain things about life that they may not understand already. And this is one, right? Give me verse 6.
Verse 6. Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham.
Right. Sarah obeyed Abraham, right? Go ahead.
Calling him Lord.
Calling him what?
Lord.
Yeah, no sister should ever. Here's what a lot of people do. A lot of people, they don't like how in the UPK that we call the men above us Lord and how our women call us Lord because they call us Adawan, right? Sarah did that in times past, and she did it. We can pull the precept, but she reverenced her husband as a position of authority, and she called her husband Lord, and she did everything. And this is why I love this example so much. She did everything that her husband said. You understand how crazy what Abraham was doing was? Like, think about it for 2 seconds, right? Abraham was living with his family and around where Sarah's family was. And they dwelt together and everything was fine. And the Lord visited Abraham and made him, basically made him the chosen lineage, right? And called him to do all manner of things that so many women would normally complain about and not do. Right? Didn't the Most High tell Abraham out of no goddamn where, just appeared to Abraham and said, hey man, get up out of your father's house, get up out of this city. I got a city over here I want you to go to. You're going to leave everybody. You're just going to take your wife and your family with you. And he did it. And his wife came with him. Now, now you got to check your spirit, right? For a sister, for a wife, you got to check your spirit, understand. If your husband said to do something that was so, out of pocket and crazy, would you do it? Like, how far does your loyalty go? Right? And I'm not telling like no sister should ever obey an unlawful order, but this was a lawful order. Like right now, right? Here's the best way that I can compare it to modern day, right? Right now, if Commanding General Yohana told me, hey, listen, I need you to move to Seattle because we got to build up Seattle. All right, so I'm going to need you to get out of Arizona where your mother, your father, your Ribs family, everybody's there. I'm going to need you to come and move up to Seattle. You're going to get yourself, together, take care of all your affairs, take your woman with you. Y'all going to come up here. And I would, of course, say, kind of the one kind. How strong of a woman do you have to be to say, kind of the one kind to your husband when he says it's time to go? Like, that's what Sarah did. Sarah didn't ask no, she said, listen, all right, cool. I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about it, but she did what her husband said, and that's the point, right? The reason why I like this example is because so many people think that submission is subjective. And you submit when you feel like, oh, this is the right thing to do. Okay. As long as your husband is giving you a lawful order, it's what should happen. Because I'm sure, like I said, I gave that example right now. A lot of women in the world, they look at that and say, hell nah, I'm not going to Seattle. My family's here. You know what I'm saying? But Sarah ain't do that, man. And that's why she's such a righteous sister. And there's so many other examples of that in the Bible of a sister that does what a wife should do. Right? Let's keep reading.
Right. Whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement.
So the reason why Peter had to say this, give me if you could, Ephesians the 5th chapter. The reason why Peter said this, because when he writes this letter, he's not just writing to men, he's writing to the entire church, and there's women in this church. And one thing, when you go into the history, a lot of these women were not trying to be in subjection unto their husbands, right? You do the history on it, you find out that was part of the reason why Peter had to write to this church. Well, he had to remind them, because all of these sisters knew the Bible in the sense that they were being taught the Bible, right? Just like the sisters in the UPK being taught the Bible. But these sisters were not trying to be orderly, right? And being in subjection to their own husbands. And they had to be reminded of what Sarah did. And then they have to ask themselves, because Peter just said, whose daughters ye are. Your daughters are Sarah. You understand? You come, like, when we say we're the children of Israel, all of us are the children of Israel. But it's sometimes for a woman, it's kind of important to look back and see what your foremothers did, right? And Sarah was a mother of Israel, right? And she did it, and she was regarded as a righteous woman in the scriptures. So now you have to examine yourself and say, well, he's asking me to do this, and it's not nearly as bad as leaving my entire family and starting a new life somewhere else out of nowhere. So maybe I should just do it. You understand? And that's kind of the brilliance in how Peter did this. That's why I like that scripture a lot, because it kind of puts it into perspective. You know, a sister will be upset because you ask her, in the nicest way, Barbara, sorry, you make me some dinner so that way when I come home I ain't got to worry about it. A wicked sister might be like, I'm not making you dinner. You understand? So it's like simple things like that, right? I use the dinner thing because that's what people get mad about. So like I said, I am rude in speech sometimes. But anyway, but that's my point, right? Let's get Ephesians the 5th chapter. Let's read verse 22. I was making a joke, right? Because a lot of people say like, oh, they say for women, go make me a sandwich. It was just a joke. So like, I'm just saying. But go ahead, you got it.
Book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verse 22.
Mm-hmm.
Wives,
you good? This is my background.
Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands,
right?
As unto the Lord.
Go ahead. So now we just read that same thing, right? Similarly with Peter, right? Submit yourself to your own husbands, right? And now Paul is saying the same thing, right? Peter was the head of the church. Paul also understood the same things that Peter understood, and he was taught, right? So wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord, right? Go ahead.
Right. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church.
So this is something that we have to understand about that relationship, right? Because Christ is the head of the church. The church is the entire body. It's not just the men. It's the entire body of Christ. So the men and the women that's in this church, Christ is what? Responsible for. That's why we had to read early on in this class about how a man having a wife beginneth a possession, a responsibility, right? Well, Christ took on that responsibility being the head of the church. You understand? And so because that's the case, a woman should understand yielding to her husband the same way the church understands yielding to Christ. It's really simple, right? When you put it on that type of scale, it's really simple, right? But keep going.
And he is the savior of the body.
Right.
Therefore,
and he's the savior of the body. What does that mean? He protects Israel.
Right.
Right? Didn't he die so that way we could live? As a husband, you better die so that your woman can live.
Right.
If it comes down to that, you better do it because that's the responsibility that you take. Now, listen, somebody coming to your crib. Now, if you're single, think about this. If you're a single man and you're just you don't have a wife, when somebody come into your crib, you don't have to worry about protecting your wife, your children, because it's just you, right? But when you take on the authority of being a husband and being a father, now you take on the responsibility of it's not just me I got to worry about. You understand? I now have to make sure that if anybody dies in this, I don't want to use profanity. If anybody dies in this house, it's going to be me, and I'm going to make sure that my family's safe. And that's the role of a husband, and that's what Christ did. You understand? That's what Christ did. Christ made sure that he died so we could live, and that's what has to happen. And so I want to throw that in there. So like you.
Therefore, as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their own husband.
Right. So the same way that that the church is subject unto Christ. What does that mean that the church is subject unto Christ? The church is being subject unto Christ in the sense that we do what Christ said. Right. Christ says you have to love your brother as yourself. Now we do that. You understand? That's what we do. When as before Christ, even though we had the law, we didn't understand the spirit of the law. So when you go into the history of it, we was killing each other back then the same way we kill each other now. You understand? Because of the fact that we didn't have Christ, and Christ gave us that understanding, and now we're gonna yield to that. When we come into the truth, we realize that we can't be that same way anymore, even though it would be easier to. Because like I said earlier, it'd be easier for me to just wail off on some cat that disrespects me. That's the easiest thing to do. It's the pride will take over you and make you want to do that, but you're not going to do it because you're going to remember what Christ, your head, said. Well, now the same thing applies for a woman. A woman has a head. When she gets a husband, she has a head. You understand? And whatever her husband says, whatever her head says, that's what she's going to do, lawfully, of course, right? So the same way that we're subject to Christ, you have to be subject. A woman has to be subject unto her man, right? Sister said, let me see. Sister said, so, okay, hold on. Okay, so like, okay, that should come second nature for a woman to cook and clean and do all those domestics. That's definitely true. Like you gotta understand the way that the Most High set it up is that everybody has in a relationship, both parties, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. And so what I will say is this: sometimes a brother will be more adept to, he might be the one that wants to wash the dishes. He might like to cook. Brother might like to cook. And he might be the one that would rather cook. The other strengths that the woman might have that, that can that she can take part in. And one thing that I remember hearing from Captain Zaryak, because it's a long running joke in the school, right? You ask her, like a treacherous woman, you ask her like, well, can you make biscuits from scratch? You understand? Like, can you cook? Things like that, right? But one thing Cap said was, he said, I can make my own goddamn biscuits. He said that, and I understood what he meant, because it's like, okay, he doesn't necessarily want a woman to just cook and clean for him and that's it. There's other things that he want. I remember General Muhammad said he wanted a woman to bring him home some money. That's the type of help meet that he needs, so that's the type of woman that he's going to get. It's that simple, right? So I definitely get where you're coming from, sis, because that's definitely true as well. But for some brothers don't require that. Some brothers enjoy cooking, so they don't need a woman to cook for him all the goddamn time. Maybe he need her to, to go to work and bring in $1,000 every 2 days. Bring in all the money that she can, type of thing, right? So, but the point is, I'm glad that you brought that up too, because the point is really in all of this is that it's just supposed to be a woman being a help that is suitable for that man. And that's why the suitable is the biggest part. Because if a man don't need help doing the dishes and cooking, what else are you going to do? Understand? What else are you going to, I hate using this term, but what else are you going to bring to the table? Right? I hate using that term, so like, just so everybody can understand. Right? So that's the point, right? And then also the sister says, Salakia, the part that is hard, it is to let a man lead a righteous man. Keyword something. Oh yeah, it's like if you could, sis, if you could just type that in one message for me, because I know you had to make a correction on there, but I don't know really what to plug in that correction. If you could just retype that whole thing, Baruch, right? But that's the point. So we also gotta understand that, right? Listen, you know, I'll even go as far to say, not every woman, like a man can't just get any woman. You understand what I mean by that? Because some women are not fit for certain men. You understand? All men love women, but there are certain women that just have different strengths that may not be suitable for you. So that's why also a brother and a sister should always make sure. That's why the 6 month rule is like the best thing to exist. Really, the 1 year rule, right? Where you take a year to feel this person out, because marriage is a lot bigger than just, oh, we're companions. I can make a friend anywhere. I can go to the grocery store and find somebody that I'm cool with, dap them up and say, hey man, we friends now. You understand? But that's no way to, because listen, that marriage is a covenant. And it's a covenant by blood. Like when you go into the Bible and you read about the covenant of marriage, it's a blood covenant, right? What happened in times past, I'm just throwing this out there so y'all had a history on it and understand it, right? What happened in times past is the law of marriage is that a father would give away his daughter to a man, right? And that man would pay that dowry. And that dowry is to pay for a virgin, a woman of marriageable age. But that woman normally, of course, when we was in our kingdom and according to our law, that woman would have never laid with another man. There's a what's called a bed chamber. You got white sheets that you put on that bed. They of course consummate the marriage by having sex. And normally, what would happen, of course, we know that a woman's hymen would break and that would produce blood, and it would be the token of the virginity is that man would come out to that father and show that woman was absolutely, I paid for what I got. Everybody understand? I'm trying not to be too graphic, but I just want everybody to understand that marriage was intended to be a blood covenant. I hope everybody's. If you don't understand, please comment and let me know. That's because I want to make sure I'm completely understood. That's the law of marriage.
Right.
So that's the thing. It's a blood covenant, and a blood covenant is serious. When you go into the law of covenants, a blood covenant is the highest covenant that you can make. Right? There's a covenant that you can make with your lips, a contract, a verbal contract. There's a covenant that you can make it in writing, which is a written contract, right? But a blood covenant is big. So what I'm saying is, in all this that we're talking about, you have to understand that marriage is an important decision to make, right? I just want to make that clear. All right. And there's a lot of parallels with that too, right? Because also you see Christ made a blood covenant with Israel. How do I know that? Because he bled all over the place, dying for your slimy, for us, right? For us being terrible people, he died for us, right? And died in one of the worst ways. Let's skip down to 31. Y'all know how I get Salaki. Verse 31.
Verse 31. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh.
Right, and so now it's like what Paul is referencing here. He's referencing the book of Genesis that we just came out of, where it said when Adam knew his wife, that Adam said, it's like I think I said, Most High said, Adam said that for this cause a man shall leave his mom and his dad and be with his wife, because they two, them being two separate people, have now become one flesh, which also goes into the importance of that marriage covenant, because that's a contract, and that's something it's more than just writing on a piece of paper like America does. America just says if you write down on a piece of paper, even if you haven't consummated the marriage by sex, you're still married according to the American government. It's bigger than a piece of paper. It's bigger than a verbal contract, right? When you've consummated the marriage with your wife, which is why we say sex is marriage, right? When you've done that, now you've made an oath and you've become one flesh. And so the Most High, that's why the Most High looks at that house being the house of Parak, or the house of Amatazah, right? Because you and your wife, you're now one flesh. That's why Adam got punished for what Eve did. You get what I mean? So it's the same thing. So um go ahead, keep reading.
Verse 32. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church.
Right, but now it says, now he's saying, he's making an analogy, right? Because we just read that a woman should be in subjection to her husband as as the church is subjection unto Christ. Right. So this whole thing, he's making an analogy, right? So that's why he said this is a great mystery. Give me verse 33.
Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself.
So now he's saying to the brothers, he's saying, you brothers, love your wives as yourself. Why? Because Christ loved the church as himself. He died for us because he loved us as himself, right? So now that's our duty as husbands, to love our wives that same way. But keep going.
And the wife see that she reverence
Yep.
her husband.
And the wife see that she reverence her husband. Now, if you want to boil everything down in a marriage to this, you can. You can definitely boil it down to this right here, right? That's the role, right? The role of a man is to love his wife as Christ loved the church, and then the role of a woman is to reverence her husband. It's that simple, right? And the woman reverencing her husband, like if I say I reverence Christ, what am I going to do to show that I reverence him? I'm going to do what he said. The scriptures say if you love God, you'll keep his commandments. For this is the love of God. To love God means to keep his commandments, to do what he said. So if you love your husband, you're going to do what he says. Why? Because he has authority over you. The Bible, we've seen it multiple times, going all the way back to Genesis, that a man's duty is to rule over you. And your duty is to submit unto him and be a helpmeet unto him, right? There's a little bit more I want to get into, but the sister said, I guess she's just summing up what she had said, right? Some men were never taught how to lead righteously. I see. And that's definitely true. No men were taught how to lead righteously in America at all until they came into the UPK, right? There have been definitely some gracious men. You know, they've been nice to their wives and things like that. But without the UPK, you're still not able to lead properly, right? So that's the importance of what we're doing, right? And that's kind of why I did the whole thing when I talked about what Peter said, right? Where a woman in her behavior, she can win over souls by exhibiting proper behavior in the Lord with her husband, right? By the way that a woman acts and behaves with her husband, she can win over souls because she's been taught how to properly behave. But the same thing with a brother. When a brother can behave properly, like brothers come up to us all the time in the UPK and they say, hey man, what are y'all about? We ain't even got to be passing out flyers or nothing, but they can just, the way that we are, the spirit of the Most High is just exuding off of us. And that's not, to big us up, right? Because we ain't nothing but filthy rags. But the point is, the Lord put that spirit on us because we were taught how to properly behave. You understand? And so that's definitely important. But no, since you're definitely right. A lot of these cats, and that's why I try to be very careful with how I teach a class like this, because a woman being in subjection under her husband, I will tell you this. It is subjective, right? And this is what I mean. I know some sisters might just take this and run with it, but you got to hear out the whole matter. A man has to be able to lead you properly. If a man tells you, hey, we gonna start getting high, you have to tell him no by law. If a man says, and this is how he wants to lead you, if a man tells you, hey, listen, you gonna quit your job, I'm gonna quit my job, I got this plug, I know how to make good money selling this dope. What, you gonna listen to him? That's how you want to be submissive? That's not submission. That's you submitting to sin. So that's, of course, something that you don't want to do. So when the sister said that, that's absolutely important to understand. Some men are not taught how to lead righteously. Ask Nabal. Nabal and Abigail, I'll give you this story. I wasn't even going to bring this out today. I had thought about it, but I didn't think I had time. But I do want to bring it out just because of what the sister said, because that's a heavy point. Some men are not able to lead righteously. When you go into the story of Nabal and Abigail, right? Nabal was he was a ruler in the land, right? And it was at the time that King David was ruling. And long story short, because I don't want to take too much time on it, but David had told Nabal, I need this from you. I think it was a plot of land or something like that. And Nabal said, he didn't say just no. He disrespectfully, he said, hell no, who the hell is David? I don't give a damn about him. And so David sought to kill Nabal, sought to kill him, right? But Nabal's wife, Abigail, she understood if she doesn't do anything about this, David's going to come and she's going to kill my husband. So you know what she did? She went and she did whatever. I can't remember what it was that exactly what the king needed, but she obliged to the king to save her husband's life. That nigga didn't know how to lead. Nabal didn't know how to lead because he was going to get himself killed and possibly his entire family killed. Right. So the woman had to step in. You understand? So absolutely, sis, what you're saying, some men were not taught how to lead. In situations like that, that's absolutely true. If you got a cat, I've heard General Muhammad say this multiple times. If you got a husband that spends all his money on alcohol, spends all his money on gambling, or spends all his money on video games or whatever the case, and I'm not talking about on a small scale. Let the brother have his video games, man. You understand? But if this cat is spending all the bill money on video games and alcohol and gambling and whatever the hell else, you gotta hide the money from him so you can pay the bills. You understand? Like that, and that's just wisdom. So I just wanted to bring that out too, because that is also a role of a wife. I just brought out Abigail. Her role in being her specific being a help that was sufficient for Nabal was making sure the nigga didn't get himself killed. That was her role. And then, of course, the Lord ended up killing that cat because he was a wicked bastard anyway. But her role ended up being to save her husband's life. You get what I mean? So that's why I said that's why that term "help meet," it's subjective as to what that specific man needs, right? Yeah, conscious. Someone has to have a sound mind. You married an idiot, so like you married an idiot. Now you got to step up.
That's good. So, that's your only chance.
Yeah, that's it. Oh man, for you sisters, yeah, that's what. Let me get a scripture right quick, if I could. I want to show y'all something, right, for you sisters, right? Let me see. I gotta find the scripture. I always forget what this scripture is. Y'all gotta give me a second. Because I don't never word it the way that it's worded. Let me see. Give me Romans 7:2. This is what we mean when we say that that's your only chance to like it. I'm not laughing because like I'm not laughing like I'm scoffing. I'm laughing like it's serious. You understand? That's tough, right? Romans 7:2. I'm gonna show you why we say for you sisters, that's your only chance. When you get that man, it's your only chance. Good.
Romans chapter 7 verse 2. For the woman which hath an husband is bound by the law.
By what?
By the law.
Woman that has a husband is bound by the law. Go ahead.
To her husband.
To who? To who?
To her husband.
How long? Go ahead.
So long as he liveth.
So long as he cheats on you.
As he liveth.
So long as he doesn't talk to you nicely.
As he liveth.
As he liveth. You are bound. If a woman gets married, you are bound to that husband forever. Ooh-wee. That's tough, and you can never get another one. I mean, unless the brother die, of course. Besides that, you got to be careful with who you choose as a sister. Right. And so your role as let's say your role as what can I say? A pre-wife? I just say your role as a woman before you get married. Make sure that you pick the right man, because you stuck with him forever. That's tough. And like for us, okay, so now for men too, and I'm of course going to bring this out next week when I do the role of a husband. But for us men, we're stuck with our women too, but we're not stuck to one. You stuck with the same asshole you married, Salaki. That same one. You don't get no rest from him ever. Man, it's a tough one, right? And then it goes on to say, but if the husband be dead, she is loosed from the law of her husband. So now if that man died, then you free. You can't kill him though. Don't go off, I know he might piss you off a lot, but that's the man you chose to marry. You married an idiot. Nabal, listen, you don't think Abigail was fed up with her husband? This bitch had to get on. I won't even call her a bitch. She was a righteous woman, right? Well, this woman got on a goddamn horse and had to ride through cities to go tell David that they'll oblige to his request, so her husband didn't die. I mean, goddamn. You know, that's just one of them things, man. I don't know what to tell you. Right? And then he ended up dying from a plague. But see, but now that's another thing. That just gets very deep. What's deep about that is, okay, so now she never left her husband, even though she probably wanted to. But she had faith in the Lord. The Lord took that nigga out, killed him. And then who she get with? She got with David. She got with the king of Israel. So it's like, you know, as long, and that's what I always tell people. Now that might not happen for everybody. You might be stuck with the same terrible piece of garbage that you married forever. You might be an old lady and this nigga just no good for nothing, nobody. That could happen. But what I do like to always remind people is that if the Lord is with you, he'll do something to ease your pain. He'll do something for you. Most of the time. I say most of the time because you know what the Lord did to Job. You know. So you can't really bank on that all the time because you know the Lord might mess with you. He might have Satan tempt you, whatever the case, right? All I'm saying is just do what you're supposed to do. The Bible says what it says. And for you sisters, you want to make sure that you get the right man. So that 1 year rule, which if anybody doesn't know what it is a brother or a sister has to be in the school for 6 months before they can even be considered to be courted. Courting is like, you could say modern day dating, right? Where you don't have sex or anything like that, but you get to talk on the phone. You know, might go to a restaurant or something like that, sometimes with a chaperone because we know how y'all get. And then after 6 months of doing that, then you make the decision on whether or not y'all can marry. That's a year. That's a long time. But, however, it's definitely necessary. It's necessary because that year that you wait, right, could save you 30, 40 years of being with a terrible husband or a terrible wife. So that year is worth it. But let's get back into the scripture, right? So let's get Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, the 25th chapter. The sister said something in the comments too, which is absolutely correct, right? We all have our own demons, right? And we do have to make sure that we acknowledge them. We got to know what they are. Luckily, in the truth, most of the time, you know, you'll get called out for what it is. That's part of what literally the Bible says is casting out demons, right? You call out them demons, whatever that demon is. And when we can acknowledge those things, and that's heavy that the sister said that too, because that's also the role of a wife, the same way it's the role of a husband, right? We always have to acknowledge what our faults are so that way we can be better husbands or better wives. Because the last thing that, if we really, you got to understand, in the truth, we push brotherhood. Why? Because Christ pushed brotherhood. That was probably, besides keeping the law and loving the Most High, Christ pushed brotherhood the most. Like I'm talking about like more than anything else besides the law.
7 times 7.
Right. Forgiving your brother 7 times 70, you know, laying down your life for your brother, right? Loving your brothers as you love yourself. That all came from Christ. Right? And so he taught that. So now we have to teach that. Now, what does that mean? We also have to live like that, right? But what does that mean? That means you have to consider remember how I brought it up earlier, a man ruling over his wife, you have to understand that she's the weaker vessel. There's certain things that you could do with her. There's certain things that you could do with a 6'2" football player. You know, you could check him a certain way. A woman, you could check that way too, but you have to weigh out, like, listen, this woman is the weaker vessel. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain ways that you have to make decisions on how you handle anything at all, right? But my point is, brotherhood comes in to play when you start to realize, okay, there's a certain way that I should talk to her. There's a certain way that I should deal with her. There's certain things that I should do to make sure that that she's comfortable. Not comfortable in the sense that she can do whatever she wants, but comfortable in the sense that she's happy. Like the scripture said in Proverbs 29, right? When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. You want your woman to rejoice over the authority that you have over her. And that's the same thing for a woman. The same thing for a woman is you want your husband to feel like you're that pillar of rest. You want your husband to want to come home. You know how many brothers I've talked to that sat in their driveway, they get off of work, off of the slavery, tired as hell, and they're gonna sit in their driveway for 30 minutes because they don't want to go inside and deal with this dragon. And we're gonna talk about that. Let me shut up so we can get to that. Right? Give me Ecclesiasticus and Apocrypha 25 and 1. 25 and 1, yep.
Book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25, verse 1. In three things I was beautified and stood up beautiful, both before God and men. The unity of brethren, the love of the neighbor, a man and a wife that agree together.
Like those are some of the most beautiful things, right? Let's go over them again. It says the unity of brethren. Brothers being like Psalms 133 and 1, right? The how great and how beautiful it is, I'm paraphrasing, for brethren to dwell in unity, for brothers to get along, be on one accord. That's a beautiful thing. Next thing says what? The love of neighbors. It's also brothers getting along, right? That's also brothers getting along. But then you have the third one, which says a man and wife that agree together. This is one of his favorite things, right? This is a brother named Sirach, and when he's writing this down, his father was a prophet named Jesus, right? Or Yahushai, or however you want to, whatever rendition, right? It's not Christ, but that was his name, right? And or Joshua, you can say Joshua, right? And this man was a wise brother, and throughout all of the things that he saw, he said there are three things that he was beautified and stood up beautiful both before God and men. And one of those three things is a wife and a man and a wife that agree together. Like a man and a woman, right? A marriage that can get along perfectly. I won't say perfectly, right? But that they can dwell together in unity and in unison and, agree with each other. That's a beautiful thing. I don't know if you're like y'all like, okay, if you're not in the UPK, you might not see this, but like in the UPK, when you see these marriages, you see these brothers getting along with their women, and it's nothing like we're used to. We're used to the woman being a savage, monster, and then the brother being, either he's too weak or he's too aggressive, where he's beating his wife, choking her in public, things like that. I don't fucking damn camera. It's a lot, y'all. I didn't even want to say I gotta hit this damn camera back there. I gotta stop slapping this damn. I know, yeah. Right? What the hell was I at, man? I don't know. Point being is, it's a beautiful thing for a husband and a wife to get along, to agree with each other. That's a beautiful thing. It's just as beautiful as Zephaniah 2 and 1. Us coming together and gathering together, that's a beautiful thing in the sight of the Lord. But a husband and a wife, that's also beautiful. Right. So I just wanted to get that. Okay. Now let's get Ecclesiasticus 7, because we're going to talk about something. Because in any
chapter 7,
yeah, Con, in verse 26, when we talk about anything, I'll tell you how I learned. When I learn, and I know this is kind of a weird analogy, but just walk with me on it, right? When I learn anything, I always research for and against it. There was a time before the truth, right? I give this example a lot. I don't think I taught it in the class, but I have given this example a lot. There was a time before I came into the ISUPK. I knew I was an Israelite, right? Knew a little bit about the Bible, but I wasn't in the UPK or anything like that. And there was a time when I wasn't sure if Christ was like real, like if Christ was the real Messiah, things like that, because I'd heard people, being around Israelite stuff. A lot of times, you'll get around somebody. Eventually, you'll run into an Old Testament Israelite, and they'll go down and they'll break down the prophecies about, like in the book of Isaiah, when it talks about unto us a child is given, things like that, right? And they'll say that's not about Christ, and they'll pull all these scriptures to try to say that it's not about Christ. And so what I ended up doing, because I was wavering, once again before the truth, I would research for and against. So I would research, okay, well, let's find proof that Christ did exist. Let's find that. Let's find proof that he is the Messiah. But then I would also, to make sure I'm not biased in my decision, I would research against Christ. I would research everything that people say, well, no, Christ didn't exist, or he did exist, but he wasn't the Messiah. These prophecies don't belong to him, all of those things, right? I would do that all the time with everything. And that's what we have to do with stuff like this, because now, like I said, just walk with me. With what we just talked about, where this is the role of a wife, her being submissive, her having a good conversation or a good conduct or being in good behavior, right? Listening to her husband and things like that. That's what you should do. Sometimes what I like to do is find out what you shouldn't do. Like when I came into the truth, right, into the UPK, I I asked questions on what I should do, but I also asked questions on what we shouldn't do. I remember asking questions about what we could do on the Sabbath. I remember asking questions, well, should we not be buying and selling on the Sabbath, things like that, because I want to know what I should stay away from. And so now we're going to find out, we're going to start to find out if you want to play the true role of a wife, you want to find out what you shouldn't be doing, right? So let's get that. Let's get Ecclesiasticus 20, I like it 2, I like it 7 and 26. I like it.
7 and 26. As thou a wife after thy mind, forsake her not.
What does it say? If you have a wife after your mind, forsake her not, meaning don't leave her. What it means to forsake is to leave. If you got you a good wife, a wife after your mind, a wife that listens to you, a wife that does what you say, a wife that treats you well, and she is that pillar of rest and things like that, well, don't leave her, because for one, they're hard to find. You understand? They're absolutely hard to find. And so this wisdom is saying, you find a good woman, don't leave her. Let's keep reading.
But give not thyself over to a light woman.
But give not thyself over to a light woman. There are some bad wives. Give me Ecclesiasticus, the 25th chapter. There are some women that you should never deal with. There are some dragons and some women that don't know their role. And that's what we're going to talk about now. For the last little portion of this class, we're going to talk about what you shouldn't do and what is not the role of a wife. All right? Give me Ecclesiasticus 25 and 16.
25 and 16. I had rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with a wicked woman.
Listen, that's what the Bible say, man. That's in here for a reason, right? It said, I had rather dwell with the lion and a dragon. What's a lion? A lion is an animal that's gonna tear you to pieces. A lion is gonna, you can't be friends with a lion. A lion's instinct is a counter. It's gonna kill you and eat you, right? It's aggressive, right? Extremely aggressive, right? And it says, and a dragon. I'd rather live in a house where there's a lion in this room and a dragon in this room, just waiting to kill me, than to keep house with a wicked woman. You got to understand how oppressive it is for a brother to live with a woman that's just, evil. And that's why I said this is like the opposite, right? Because what a woman should do? A woman should be what? A pillar of rest. She should be a help that's meet or suitable for a brother. But if you got to understand, if you're doing this type of stuff, you're going against what the Most High said. The Most High told a woman what her role was. But you're not doing that. So now, the man that you're dealing with, that you couldn't live without. Life for a single woman is just not great at all. Understand? That's why Isaiah the 4th chapter says it'll be 7 women taking hold on one man. They just want their reproach taken away. Right. They need some help. You understand? Just let us be called by our name. Why? Because it's tough for a woman, man. It's tough for a woman to be by herself. Even for a man. A man shouldn't be alone. Genesis 2 said a man shouldn't be alone. It also said that a man without a wife is like a man that's wandering throughout the streets and mourning. Understand? So I'll say it just like this. We need each other. But in order for us, we just read, right, in the book of Ecclesiasticus, the 7th chapter, that one of the greatest things in the entire earth is for a husband and wife that agree with each other, that are on the same page. That's when the scriptures say that you are you become one flesh. with your wife and vice versa, you and your wife become, a man and a woman become one flesh when they get married. That thing is real. It's not physical, but it's definitely spiritual. And for y'all to be one flesh, it means for y'all to be on one accord. Now y'all do the same thing. That husband orders that household and a woman follows. It's that simple. But if you're not going to do that, this is the reaction you're going to get out of your man. Your man going to be like, man, I'd rather live with a goddamn lion and fight for my life every day. Because that's what I'm doing with you anyway. You know what I'm saying? A man is fighting for his life every single day when he has a bitch of a woman in his house. I'm using that term on purpose, right? He's fighting for his life anyway. It's like any day, every day anyway, right? So yeah, but he'd still rather take a lion and a dragon over that. That's crazy.
You'll rather take more hours at work than go back home.
Man, and like I said, that's why I said I've heard about brothers sitting in their driveway for 30 minutes to an hour, just sitting there like, man, I do not want to go inside and deal with this bitch. Like, because that's how much of a hell you can put your husband in. That's why when we talking about the role of a wife, it's important to bring these things up too, because it shows you what not to do, and it shows you how really I think we're gonna bring the scripture out in just a little bit, right? A woman does have a lot of power, and the biggest power that a woman has is her femininity. And if you throw that out the window, you're gonna make your husband hate you. If you get rid of that feminine side and your ability to please your man, you get rid of that, your husband's gonna hate you, man. And he's not gonna want to do. He'll rather the script I mentioned it about 20 times already, that it's if a man without it's like a man without a wife is like a man that's mourning, right? Going up and down the street mourning. But he'd still rather be single than to keep house with you. You understand? He'd still rather have no woman, nobody to help him out than deal with you. And that's a situation that you don't want your husband to be put into. So that's important to understand when you are taking on the role of a wife. You gonna say something? Let's keep reading. You can jump down to 18.
Her husband shall sit among his neighbors, and when he heareth it, shall sigh bitterly.
Right. So he gonna sit around his homeboys, right? You take this to a modern day, right? You sitting around your homeboy, and you hear, and you can take this a few ways, right? You hear your woman's mouth, you're gonna, and you gonna, and your brothers, they gonna be around you like, damn, Mark, you got a dad. You dealing with something terrible.
Especially when you're around the boys and you get a call. Everybody knows. Oh man, come on.
Hey man, I done dealt with brothers like that, and it's like, and it's such a you see like his face change. You see, he pick up his phone, and before when his phone start ringing, before he even looks and sees who it is, he's like, oh man, because he knows it's his woman calling him about whatever the hell. He might have been gone too long for her, whatever the case. And he look at the phone, he's like. So when they say hear it, it don't even necessarily have to be her mouth. It just be the phone ring. He hear the phone ring. He like, oh my God, I do not want to do. Hello, and he did hello, and she, where you been? What you doing? When you coming home? Right? He like, baby, I told you I was gonna be out. I ain't trying to hear that. You need to come home and do this, that, and the third, and do this and that, and this and that. Oh, he's just okay, baby, and that's what'll kill you. Cause like I said, I done seen it with brothers. Right? Not in school. No brother in the school would ever deal with that, right? But I'm talking about when I was out in the world, I seen it with brothers, and he'll be like, okay, baby, I'll be home in a minute, all right? He's just about ready to just cry and fall on the ground and die. And it's like, but that's what you can do to your man. And that's what my point is. You can really destroy your husband. That's why I said women have a lot of power, right? Men kill over women. Men go and destroy countries and nations so they can bring back their riches to their women. So it's like you really have to be careful with the power that you possess, because it's unrighteous and unsisterly for you to destroy your man. You take on that role. Take on the role of a wife and do what a wife is supposed to do. Uplift your man and be your man's peace. Be his pillar of rest. You do that, you're on a righteous path. But if you do what we reading about right now, with brothers, your husband don't even want to talk to you. He don't want to hear your voice. He don't want to be in the same house as you. He dreads getting a call from you. You've destroyed him mentally. You're being extremely unsisterly and unrighteous, and the Lord will deal with you for that. But you gonna say something? So,
Nah, this is a video. I can't send it to you. So it's a couple. It says what kind of man do you want, right? But it's really more what kind of woman do you want. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like it's going like this two type of women. You know what I'm saying? The one that's submissive, and then the other one that you know what I'm saying in control.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? There's gonna be that one that wants to, you know what I'm saying, be in charge. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
One wants to have the position of, you know what I'm saying. If I don't keep him in check, he's gonna run around loose. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna be doing whatever you want to do. You know what I'm saying? That's like kind of like a mother type shit.
Yeah. Right. And that's when a man. That's why the scriptures say, when a man gets a woman, he leaves his mother and his father and cleaves unto his wife. He's not getting with you because he needs another mother. You understand? You don't need somebody to police him. The reason why a woman needs a husband is because she needs to be policed. She needs to be the one that's told. And now that's not to say, I always give disclaimers. I've given about 20 of them today. That's not to say we already talked about Nabal and Abigail, right? That's not to say that a man is always right, right? But the point is, the way that a marriage is set up is that specific way that the Lord said, right, where a man rules over his woman, and that's that simple, right? But of course, because of because specifically because what we're reading about, you know, it will absolutely ruin a man. You can, like I said, like you'll ruin a man. That man will never be the same. Like, you can traumatize that man, right? And it's because women today are not really taught. Like, we just talked about how brothers haven't been taught, but women haven't been taught how to be wise either. You get what I mean? So the same way that brothers haven't been taught how to lead, women haven't been taught how to follow. You get what I mean? And that comes from, I could talk about that for days, right? Because that comes from a lot of things. That comes from the traumatic stress that the black woman has suffered in America, right? And the things that she saw with her mother, and really what her mother saw, and that shit goes all the way back to slavery, man. It's a terrible thing. But my point is that now that we understand the truth, these are the guidelines that we got to follow. When the Bible says in Revelation 18, chapter the 4th verse, that we have to come out of America, come out of her, my people, so we don't partake in her sins and receive her punishments, it's talking about stuff like this. There's no brawling woman going to, she's not going to get so-called saved. It's not happening, right? Because she's disobeying the order that Christ set up, that the Most High set up, right? Same thing for a brother, right? So, but let's keep reading, right? Let's read on that. Let me see, what was we at? Let's read. Let's read 19. But just so you know, you could definitely make your husband hate you, and I don't want to say righteously, goddamn. I don't want to say it like that, but I will say I can't blame him. So I like it, but let's keep going. 19.
Book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 25, verse 19.
Right.
All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman.
Right. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Now, this is, of course, also spiritual. You have to understand something about the way it's a divine order. It's okay. You see how men go and take nations and kill people and all of these terrible things? The Bible just said that that's nothing compared to the wickedness of a woman. I mean, that's like unfathomable, but here's what you have to understand. Women can have demons on them that are so terrible that they'll do worse than what I just said, killing nations and things like that. They'll do worse than that with just their mouth, with just their behavior. They will absolutely ruin. And we just talked about it. The damn World War One was started because of a woman going and stepping out on her man. So it's like, and we'll read it in just a minute in the book of Esdras, right, where wars are fought over women, men kill other men over women, men go and work day and night just so they can bring the money back to his woman. All of these things, women have a lot of power. You understand? And the thing is, I'm gonna get you 1 second, Salaki. The thing is, when you take into account where we started today in Genesis, right, and how these women will do the same thing that Eve did for power, then you start to understand, okay, I see it. You can make the correlation. You can see the way that a woman manipulates a man. You can see all of those things. And the reason why I brought that, I wanted to read to that specific scripture is because you have to understand the power that you have and you have to harness it and make sure that you don't do what other women have done with it, right? If you want to play the role of a woman, a wife, you have to do it the way that the Most High said. But go ahead, Sluggy.
And not just manipulate the mind of the man, but just, you know what I'm saying, in a nation in general. You know what I'm saying? Because one woman can start a whole wildfire, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
by her actions, her thoughts, you know what I'm saying, her everything, you know what I'm saying? That's why during the council, I believe, of that one king, right, that I guess there's this wicked woman, you know what I'm saying, like being at being disordered, you know what I'm saying? And then his counselors were like, you know what I'm saying? Hey, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to do something because if the men or you know what I'm saying, the people outside see this type going on with the king, imagine what can happen. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know what I'm saying, you gotta execute certain situations, and that's why men have to have that discipline too, in order, you know what I'm saying, to reject some of these females, because you're gonna have to check, you know what I'm saying, check them in their actions. You're gonna have to check them in their speech, in their dress, and everything. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to check them, and it has to happen in order for our nation to function well. You know what I'm saying? To function better than these other people, because I mean, right now Israel's taking a lot of losses. You know what I'm saying? And you see, you know what I'm saying, every other nation, you know what I'm saying, winning. And their relationships with their, you know what I'm saying, their partners, it's like, you know what I'm saying, I mean, like I said, everything's, you know what I'm saying, visible.
Right. Yeah. And matter of fact, if you could just skip back up in this chapter. Skip back up to 13, to verse 13. We just read all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her. Let me get the 13th verse. We'll go back a little bit.
Verse 13. Give me any plague but the plague of the heart.
Right. So this brother's saying, listen, I'll take any plague but the plague of the heart. Sorrow, right? The plague of the heart is like sorrow. And we're gonna find out part of what that can entail, right? Go ahead.
And any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman.
Of who?
Of a woman.
Now, once again, we're not bringing this out to just bash women. We're not doing any of that. It's not at all what this is about. But we are putting women on notice. And we understand something that not many men understand, right? And once again, it's kind of the common theme when we've been going past these past few scriptures, right? Is the power of a woman. A woman does, and this sounds crazy, right? This sounds crazy with all of the different atrocities that males have committed. Men have committed a gang of atrocities. It's ridiculous, right? And women are not usually the face of those. Meaning, women didn't do what Adolf Hitler did. They didn't go and order, you know, um, millions of people to be killed and things like that. They didn't do what Mussolini did and things like that, right? But then we see right here, this brother, which is a very wise brother, says, "Give me any wickedness, but the wickedness of a woman." A woman has it in her to be very extremely maniacal, right? And evil. It's in them. And one of the modern proofs that you can see today is like child support, right? And not child support to where the woman is like, oh, I really need this help with this money, but it's like, no, I'm gonna hang this baby over your head. I'm gonna hang this court letter over the head. If you don't do what the hell I say, I'm gonna put you on child support and make sure it's too much for you to pay, so you end up in prison. Men don't do that to their women. You understand? Men are not the type of people, like, men don't hang things like that over their wives' heads. It's not something, but that is an emotional decision for somebody to make, and women do it all the time. So that's why he said, give me any wickedness. I mean, it's like it. What he said, give me any wickedness, but the wickedness of a woman, because a woman can be extremely ruthless, right? You get what I'm saying, right? Makes perfect sense, right?
Did you hear that one story about this sister that murdered or stabbed, you know what I'm saying, both of her child? Um, because it was a problem. It was a situation between the mother and the father, and I guess she took it out on the kids. You see
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah, and see, and stuff like that too. Like, okay, and then we talk about like the domestic violence and things. Did you know that more women beat their husbands than husbands beat women?
Yeah.
But husbands never say anything about it, right? And so now, once again, this isn't to just bash the women, but this is just to show you that there's something in you that you're going to have to make sure. A woman is going to have to make sure that she does not allow to come out. Like I just said earlier, we say it all the time. Everybody fighting their own demons. We all got demons to fight. You understand? But you have to fight them. That's the point. And if you want to play the role of a wife, you're going to have to fight the demons that tell you nah. You're going to have to fight Asmodeus. Asmodeus killed 7 men. Okay, so I got to make sure because I know that's not a common story that everybody knows, right? But there was a sister that had a demon on her,
Right.
and the demon's name was called Asmodeus, right? And that demon would cause that woman to kill every man that she had sex with, or her every husband that she had. And she killed the first man, and then the next man would try to take, oh yeah, I want this woman as a wife, killed him, all the way up to I believe it was about 7 men, right? And then of course that demon was able to be conquered, but it was like that's the type of demon that a lot of women have, because you might get, and we all know this, a woman might get a very good man, but she's going to destroy the relationship because she's a bitch because of Asmodeus. You understand? Like the demon that's in her is making sure that relationship fails. Why? Because that demon is in love with you. This is a real spiritual thing. That demon doesn't want you to have another man. Just like the demon of, um, getting high, or the demon of, lust, or whatever the case. That demon doesn't want you to serve God. It wants you to serve Him. So the same thing with that demon of Asmodeus that a lot of women have is going to destroy all your relationships because that demon is absolutely in love with you and wants you to serve him and not serve a man, a righteous husband. You understand? So that's something also that sisters definitely got to make sure that they check. You gonna say something?
That's basically just going back to the whole help. You know what I'm saying? Going back to the whole, so like, you know what I'm saying? Being subject to something, you know what I'm saying? Righteousness, freedom. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're gonna serve that man, you're gonna serve, you know what I'm saying? That way.
And that's the thing too, and I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Because the scriptures say no man can love two masters. For either he'll hate one and love the other, or he'll love one and hate the other. But regardless, you can only love one at a time. So now, if you're a man, I'm trying to keep it on the woman, right? If you're a woman in a relationship, right, or married, of course, that's really what a relationship is, right? If you have a husband and there's something in you telling you not to submit to this man, you are now yielding yourself to the demon that's telling you not to submit to this man. And trust and believe that however long it takes, however far down the line it has to get, that same demon is going to cause you to leave your man, or it's going to cause your man to leave you, right? This is going to happen, right? Because it's you have to really understand these things, because if you don't, you won't even recognize the demon that you have, and it'll by the time that you realize, damn, I messed up, it'll be over, and you'll be a single mother with 5 baby daddies and 12 kids, and living check to check on the child support checks that you get, and the welfare checks, and you're not gonna be living like your girlfriends told you. Oh, you got to put him on child support, and you'll be able to get the Brazilian weave, right? You'll be able to get all the clothes you want, and brand new shoes, or whatever the case. But they might have like 1 or 2 baby dad. You got 12 kids because your demon told you to abandon your 5 husbands, and now the child support actually got to go to diapers and stuff. So now you're gonna be living poor, and you ain't got no head, no protection, no covering, right? Because you let your demon win. And that demon is going to make sure that you stay in a position to never get another husband. I mean, you're just going to be somebody. I ain't gonna go all the way into it, right? But y'all understand what I mean. But that's the point, right? Okay, now let's do this real quick because I know we're running short on time. God damn. Okay, we should be able to get through it. Let's get First Esdras, right? Because remember, I told y'all I wanted to bring up that story, or call it a story. That story on what's the brother's name? Zerubbabel, right? Um, telling the king how. So just to give you a backstory on this, right? There was a king at the time, and Zerubbabel was one of the prophets. And the king had asked, what is the most powerful thing of all? And there was one of the brothers that said, he had said that, what do you say? Wine, right? Which is like strong drink. It's the strongest because when people do it, people drink, it takes over them and things like that. Another one said the king. Another one was trying to please the king. He said, well, the king is the most powerful because he can give the orders, things like that. But Zerubbabel said one of the wisest things ever. He said, besides the truth, women are the most powerful. And we're going to find out. He's going to explain now. All right. First Ezra, the 4th chapter, and 13.
First Ezra, chapter 4, verse 13. Then the third who had spoken of women and of the truth, this was
Zerubbabel
began to speak.
Mm-hmm.
O ye men, it is not the great king, nor the multitude of men, neither is it wine.
He said, none of those things are the most powerful. It's not the king, it's not the multitude of men, it's not wine. Go ahead.
That excelleth.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it then that ruleth them?
He said, who is it then that ruleth them? Like who? So now you say the multitude of men has the most power. You said a king has the most power, right? Who rules over them? You telling me nobody rules over the king? Let's find out. Go ahead.
Or hath the leadership over them?
Oh, who's the leader over them? Right. Go ahead.
Are they not women?
It says lordship. So like, who has the lordship over them? It says, are they not what? Women? Right? Zerubbabel about to break it down for y'all, man. He about to break it down for y'all simps too. So like, let's jump down because to stay on the point, we're gonna get the 20th verse.
20?
Yeah.
A man leaveth his own father that brought him up,
Mm-hmm.
and his own country, and cleaveth unto his wife.
Right. So a man, he'll leave his father that brought him up, his mother that brought him up. He'll leave all of that to go be with a woman. He'll leave all of that. But that ain't all, right? Keep going.
He that not to spend, it's like he sticketh not to spend his life with his wife.
He doesn't stick with his parents because he wants to go be with his wife. Right? Keep going.
And remembereth neither father nor mother nor country.
And he'll forget all about them. He'll forget all about his family. Why? Because he got him a woman. Keep going.
By this also ye must know that women have dominion over you.
That women what?
Have dominion over you.
He said by this, he's saying this should be enough to show you that these women got a lot of power over y'all brothers.
Right.
You understand? Because he's about to go in and break down how everything that these brothers do, everything that we do as men, it usually always leads back to women, right? And that's why, just before we keep going, right, that's why he made sure in the 3rd chapter, he said what? He said, besides the truth, women are the most powerful. If it wasn't for the truth, women would be the most powerful thing on the earth. And now, what did I just say earlier? The truth is your first wife. That's why when you go where they talk about a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife, you have to be the husband of the church. You have to be, the truth. You have to put the truth first. But then after that, the highest covenant that you partake in is that covenant of marriage, that blood covenant that you have of marriage. That's the highest covenant that you take in, right? But he'll go on and he'll explain it. He'll explain it.
Do ye not labor
Mm-hmm.
and toil and give and bring all to the women?
He said, do you not labor and toil and give and bring unto the women? You go to work all day, every day, and you come home and you share that money with your wife. You understand?
Right.
Like, and now if you want to take this even on a more carnal note, what do brothers, I'm not just really talking about brothers in the school, we do get fresh for women, that's for damn sure. But what do brothers normally get dressed up nice for? Get the nice cars, get nice things and nice jewelry. Is it to impress other men? I don't think so. You understand? Brothers get nice, dressed up nice and go to, a club, bar, whatever the case. Not to show off to the other men, You understand? It's like good.
Cat Williams has a comedy, right? Where he's he's making fun of Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? How he had everything that he has was to entertain little kids.
Yeah.
But in his house, he has everything he has is to entertain women.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Silky, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Sheets, all
He don't give a
that,
damn about no
wine.
silky sheets.
Right. Like the things, everything that has, like, you know what I'm saying? Everything that a woman likes, like he has it there for them when they come over. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't have it for like guests or, you know what I'm saying, for the guys or anything like that. He has it for a woman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Keep her comfortable.
And that's the point, right? So now, not like I said, I ain't want to make it too carnal, but that's just the truth. You understand? Because men are very simple. Men are fine with just having simple things. We get around the brothers and we not doing nothing. I just throwing a t-shirt. Understand? But my point is that we read just now, do not men labor and toil for what? For women. That's so now let's keep going. But like I said, it gets a little deeper than that, right? Go ahead.
Yea, a man taketh his sword and goeth his way to rob and steal, to sail upon the sea and upon rivers.
Go ahead.
And looketh upon a lion.
And look at he'll fight a goddamn lion. Go ahead.
And goeth in the darkness. And when he had stolen,
go ahead.
And when he had stolen, spoiled, and robbed.
When he has stolen everything, when he is spoiled and he's robbed and he's went and conquered, go ahead.
He bringeth it to his love.
He bring it back to his woman. That's what you're going out there for. Now, not to say that, listen, one thing I want everybody to understand, this isn't like, because we just read, he said, don't you understand that women have dominion over you? This isn't scripture in the sense that this is saying that this is what it is, right? Because women don't have dominion over us. What he's saying is the truth, though. Because for most men, they allow women to have dominion over them.
Right.
Why? Because everything they do is geared towards their woman. Either getting women or towards the woman that they have and pleasing them and satisfying them. Now, we're going to get a real life example from the king in just a minute, but let's get some more on this. Let's get more of the things that women, that prove that women are powerful and that men do for women, right? Go ahead.
Wherefore a man loveth his wife better than father or mother.
And that's the damn truth. Your father and your mother, the ones that changed your diapers and did all these things for you and raised you up when you was a badass kid and didn't listen to a goddamn thing they said, you love them. But you're going to love your wife more. And that's scriptural anyway. But just think about how powerful that is. You love your woman more than you love your father and your mother. You're supposed to, but think about how powerful that is. Right? When as a child, you would never think that you could love a thing in the world more than that father or that mother. Then you grow up and you find a woman. And you love her more than you could have ever thought you could have loved a person. That's the love of a husband and a wife. Go ahead, Slocky.
You know what I'm saying? Your mother and your father, you know all your life. This woman comes, you know what I'm saying, a month later, and it's like,
you done fell in love.
Head over heels over her, you know what I'm saying? It's
right.
Like, you crazy over it. You
But
know
once again, like that's why the scriptures say, and that's why Zerubbabel brought it up, right? Or I don't think he brought it up, did he? He kind of did. He kind of referenced it, but that's why the scriptures say that you leave your mother and your father and you cleave unto your wife. That's just what happens. Right. But that's the natural order, and that's how things are, right? So I'm bringing this out for a purpose, right? Because a woman has to know that her playing her role as a wife is extremely important, right? And that it's bigger than her just, oh, I'm just going to be submissive. Absolutely, she should definitely be submissive. That's what the scriptures say that she has to be. But it involves so much more than that. And a woman, in order for her to truly understand what she must do and must not do, she has to understand the power that she attains, right? And I want to make sure everybody understands that this ain't got nothing to do with just, well, before I bring that out, let's keep reading, because there's going to be an example that comes up. Right, go ahead.
Yea, many there be that run out of their wits for women, and become servants for their sake.
Many there be that have run out of their wits, meaning lost their goddamn mind. For who? For women. And have become servants for their sakes. Remember when we was talking about the brother to get the phone call? He gonna dread the phone call, but he gonna look at it. He's like, But you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna pick up the phone. He's not gonna dare let that thing go to voicemail. Why? He's become a servant for her sake. Why? Because anything to keep that woman happy. And here's what I want everybody to understand. You can be an evil bitch and you can utilize that. You can utilize that a man will do anything to keep you happy because for the most part, that's very true. For the most part, a man will give you the goddamn world, right? And you can be a bitch to utilize that, right? Or you could just be righteous, and this man, and it'll be the same. A man will still give you everything you want and more, is if you use your righteousness to get that. Like here's one thing that I always say, right? Us serving the Most High, like it's not a vain thing, right? Because when we serve the Most High, we get something for it. We get the kingdom, right? There's a whole lot of perks that come with serving the Most High, right? Well, for a woman to serve her husband, she has to also understand that it's a whole lot of perks that come with that. If a woman is, you don't want your husband to give you what you want out of spite. Trust me. I've seen the difference in multiple relationships, right? Where a woman will use, the power that she has to just make this man bend to her will. Now, it might make her feel powerful or whatever the case, but you know what's even more powerful? Using that femininity to your advantage, and that man will give you whatever you want. Case in point, um, what's the sister name? Purim, Esther, right? Esther with the king, she could have just been a bitch and she might have still kind of got what she wanted. I don't know. I don't know actually with that one because that king, when his last wife was a bitch, he kind of killed her. So it's a lock it. But my point is, what she did to get what she wanted, to get exactly what she wanted, she used her femininity. She went and batted her eyelashes at him and did what he said, right? And just was very feminine, and that's what got her what she needed. Every sister, I don't give a damn who you are. You could think you're the ugliest woman in the world. You use your femininity the right way, you get what you want. I said this on the podcast like 2 weeks ago. I said any woman can get a man. You just got to know how to act. You understand? So that's one thing, right? I know we're a little bit over. I do want to finish this little excerpt. So let's get let's get 27.
27. Many also have perished, have erred, and sinned for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And now do ye not believe me?
Right. He's saying, do you not believe me after all these examples I've given you? You don't believe me? Men have definitely sinned and died for women. Men have killed and died for women. Right? Just for women. Right. It happens all the time. A lot of these gangs and stuff like that, they killing each other over women. Men, getting some women, and that's why the scriptures say that, the wicked, give me any wickedness but the wickedness of a woman. A woman will go and sever friendships. I mean, she's just going to sever friendships. She's going to have sex with your best friend and things like that. That's what can happen. And that's the power, you understand, that a woman has, right? Keep going.
Right. Is not the king great in his power?
So now we're going to get into what I wanted to talk about, right? The king is great in his power. He's saying that for sure, right? Keep going.
Do not all regions,
so like
all regions, fear to touch him.
All the regions, they fear to touch the king. Nobody would dare come up against this king, right? Nobody would dare come up against him, right? Because they know that he has power and authority, right? But keep going.
Yet did I see him and
you can say Apame or Apame, whatever.
Apame, the king's concubine.
So he said, all these nations fear the king, but I saw the king and his concubine, him and his woman, right? Go ahead.
The daughter of the admirable Mardukis,
yep.
Sitting at the right hand of the king, and taking the crown from the king's head, and sitting it upon her own head. Also, she also struck the king with her left hand.
Zerubbabel is saying he witnessed this. He witnessed the king, the one that everybody fears, because this man could snap his finger and your throat is slit and your head's cut off. He could do that.
Right.
This man is ultimately powerful, and that's what a king has, that type of authority and a position. But yet, his woman comes sit on the right hand of him at the throne. And she goes and takes his crown off, which is nobody could touch the king's crown. Takes his crown off, puts it on her head, and slaps him and said, just to show that she can. Now, anybody rational would just put her to death. Anybody that wasn't married to that woman would just put her to death for doing that. You couldn't even get that close to the king. But because this was this man's wife, a concubine, right? Go ahead.
And yet, for all this, the king gaped and gazed upon her with open mouth.
He opened up his mouth and he gazed on her at her beauty and loved her still. After doing that, you understand that if Zerubbabel saw it, there were witnesses to this. So people saw the king, the one that once again could snap his fingers and get an entire nation of people get killed. They saw him get abused by his woman, and he couldn't do nothing but just gaze at her in awe because he loved her.
Right.
Only a woman could do that. Ain't no man on the face of this planet. I don't give a damn who you are, especially the king that Zerubbabel was under. There's no man on the face of this planet that could get away with taking the king's crown off of his head and putting it on himself. Taking the king's crown, getting close to the king. But a woman was able to do it. And that should show you, God damn, she said Will Smith. I understand that. Yeah, that's about right. Right? But that's my point, right? My point is that only a woman could put Will Smith through what he's been through. Right. And he's still gonna look at her. He's just gonna be in love with that bald-headed bitch. And ain't nothing nobody can do about it. I mean, listen, like the Lord been trying to show him. Gator brought alopecia, took away her hair from her. Ain't nothing, But my point is that these women are extremely powerful. Let's just finish this up real quick. This is the last verse on this. It says, go ahead.
If she laughed upon him, he laughed also.
All right, she laughed at him, he gonna laugh with her, right? Keep going.
But if she took any displeasure at him,
if it was something that she didn't like, right? Anything at all, go ahead.
The king was fain to flatter.
He was fain to flatter. He would do whatever to make it, whatever he did wrong, he'd do whatever in the entire earth to make it up to this woman. Keep going.
That she might be reconciled to him again.
Only to make sure that he doesn't lose this woman. To make sure that she comes back to laugh and joke and be with him. That's the power that a woman holds. Now, you have to understand, a woman definitely needs to understand something about this. Because you hold that power, you need to understand the righteous role of a wife. If you have a husband, you have to understand what your role is and understand how evil you could be, so that way you're never that evil, right? That's what you have to do. Like these examples, understand something, right? Give me Ecclesiasticus, the 26th chapter. We're going to close out in just a second. So like, I know we're a little over, right? But these examples that I've given in the past 45 minutes of this class have all been negative examples, and I did that for a reason, right? You understanding the power that you have should make you realize that because you have that, because that's what everything was with Eve. She wanted the power. She didn't realize she already had it. You understand? She didn't realize that she had an abundance of power. She could do whatever she wanted. But she decided to go up against her husband to get what she wanted. She could have just power. I'm trying to put y'all sisters on game without fully putting y'all on game, because I ain't trying to piss my brothers off, but you can trick your husbands into giving you whatever the hell you want. Didn't Esther do it? Right. Esther did it, but she didn't do it by being a bitch. That's my point, right? All of the examples that we just saw were all very evil ways to get what you want. A good woman, she's going to get what she wants by being submissive to her husband. That's all I'm trying to say. Right. Matter of fact, we probably just close out with that. If anybody want to read what we was going to read, It's Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha, chapter 26, and verses 13 through 16. All right. And that kind of sums it all up, right? But everybody, just make sure you understand this, right? A brother should understand the role of a wife. And the reason why is because we have to understand what to expect. If you don't understand what to expect from your woman, then you're not going to be able to run your household properly. Same thing for a sister. If you don't know how to act, the household is just going to fall apart, right? Like I said, next week I should be doing a kind of like a part 2 or whatever, kind of like a another installment or whatever you want to call it, of how or what the role of a husband is, right? But Lord allow everybody got what they needed. Any questions, anything like that, of course you can hit us up. That being said, I'm gonna pass class over to Priest Officer Matza.
ISUPK security announcements. We are the ISUPK, started at 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. Rule for new brother and sister. When a new brother or sister comes into the school, they are off limits for 6 months. They are to be saluted only. They are here to shed themselves of the world. If they need transportation, the teacher will arrange it. After 6 months, if a brother or sister has an interest in a particular person, he or she must get permission from the head to marry. He must get permission from the head to speak to a brother or sister. There's another 6 months in which the brother and sister will court each other. After 6 months period, the brother and sister will get permission from the head to marry. Tithes, which is a commandment, you can find this in the book of Numbers, chapter 18, verse 21. Also in the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verse 8 through 10. Ma'asher means tenth in the Hebrew, 10% of every penny of any increase the Lord gives you. Give to the Treasury Department or priest funds, or teacher. Priest funds, free will offering for priests, not mandatory whatsoever amount you would like. Upcoming holy convocation, which is the blowing of the trumpets, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Blowing
September.
of the trumpets.
Yep.
If anyone wants to be a trooper in the school, to start wearing all black boots, shirts, pants, headband, and scarf. Also, too, a reminder, if you're coming to the school, to hit the GPS. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you leave a review on the ISUPK Arizona page on Google, right? And with that, Benavizu Ramajim, we will courtesy salute to the teacher. Benavizu Ramajim Shabbat, Ramajim, Barak, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shabbat Rakatha. Yadi Matah, class dismissed.